According to the Wall Street Journal and also the Washington Post, Trump has been talking to his aides about starting a new party. Perhaps it would be called the MAGA, the Make America Great Again Party, or perhaps the Patriot Party, but it would represent a third force in American politics. Now, this has already kind of lit everything abuzz. Everyone is talking about what would the implications be of a third party. To some degree, it's a dismaying idea to conventional Republicans for the simple reason that it could even eclipse the Republican Party. There's some surveys that suggest that the MAGA Party would be the second party and the Republican Party the third party in America. But before I go too far down this road, I want to hit the brake for a second and start with a very simple question that we rarely ask when we see these news reports. Are these reports true? If not, who concocted them and with what motive? So let's start with the reporting in the Washington Post. I have in front of me the article. Trump is apparently talking to his top aides, and evidently these top aides are talking to the Washington Post. That alone is fishy because the Trump team hates the Washington Post. So I right away begin to suspect that they have made the whole thing up. And my suspicions are fortified when we begin with statements like this: multiple people in Trump's orbit, multiple, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations, say that Trump has told people that the third-party threat gives him leverage to prevent Republican senators from voting to convict him during the Senate impeachment trial. So the appeal to anonymous sources, decoded, we're making this stuff up, is to supply Trump with a supposed motive, and its motive is purely vindictive. I'm going to force these Republicans, I'm going to blackmail them into vindicating me by my threats to start a third party. Now, the people who write this, they're writing it because they've got a clear motive. See, they're putting out Trump's motive, which is fictitious because they made it up, and concealing their motive. What's their motive? Their motive is to antagonize the leadership of the Republican Party, to say, that Trump, if that's his motive, we're going to convict him. So the goal of the Washington Post is to put out this idea of a third party to drive a wedge between Trump and the MAGA movement on the one hand and the traditional Republicans on the other, and to create recriminations between the two, to get the traditional Republicans to say, well, Trump wants to teach us a lesson. Well, we'll teach him a lesson first. We need to sort of remove this baleful Trump and MAGA influence from the Republican Party. And of course, the left is having parties over this. They're salivating, they're laughing, they're chortling, they're chuckling. They would love to see it happen. Now, they know, and we should know. We're kind of the stupid party, so we're always late to figuring this stuff out. We're still thinking, oh my gosh, what if Trump starts a new party? Instead, we should be thinking that here is a case where this new MAGA party would be, in fact, a real response to the frustrations that many patriots, many Trumpsters feel about the way in which the Republican Party has treated them. It has treated them like upstarts. It has even implied that they are part of some racist terrorist movement. This is horrific to do to people who just voted for you, voted not just for Trump, but voted for Republicans up and down the line. So the MAGA movement has shown its loyalty to the Republican Party, and what does it get in return? So I'm not that surprised to see prominent Trumpsters. I mean, here is our buddy, my friend and Debbie's, Terrence Williams. I will be joining the Patriot Party. He's wrong. I'll try to talk him out of it, but I know why he feels that way. Here's a kid who sort of bet the ranch on Trump. Here's a kid that from an orphanage, and Trump spoke to him. He loves Trump, and he feels betrayed by the Republican Party. Here's Chad Prather, the radio host. I'm sick of Republicans and Democrats equally. I mean, what's crushing is that word equally. It's not that he's sick of Republicans, but he's even more sick of the Democrats. No, he's equally sick of them. They absolutely do not serve the American people. So this impulse is very understandable. And this is a big topic I'm not going to exhaust today. I mean, we can think back and realize how catastrophic a third party would be. It's not catastrophic in other countries, by the way. In parliamentary systems, you can have third parties and fourth and fifth parties. And then you can create ruling majorities by coalitions of parties that come together to create a joint or team majority. And then the advantage of that is that each component, each party within that coalition can make demands on the coalition as a whole. And there's a kind of rationing out, you may say, of concessions to each of the different parties which have competed on similar but somewhat different objectives or different platforms. That could work abroad. It works to a point in Israel, it works to a point in England. It's not going to work here because the third party is just going to divide the conservative vote. Let's remember that however different the Trumpsters are from traditional Republicans, and they're very different. They drive different kind of cars, and they celebrate on weekends differently, and they talk differently, and they have a different style and a different culture, perhaps, but they don't have different values. When you look at their belief in upward mobility, capitalism, and free markets, they're the same. When you look at their belief that America should be strong in the world but act prudently, they're the same. If you look at their belief in families and communities and traditional values and the importance of religion, they're the same. So this is not a good idea to fork these two groups. Look what happened when Perot ran, and Perot split the Republican vote. In fact, I'm looking right here at a map. This is showing the Clinton-Bush result when Perot ran. Electoral votes, Clinton 370, Bush 168. Talk about a landslide, and an embarrassment. We don't want to go back to those days. But I will say one thing in closing, and that is, at least for this segment, and that is that the best way for Republicans to get a MAGA party and thus plunge a dagger into their own chest politically is for them to vote to convict Trump. If the Republicans convicted Trump, and I do not believe that they are stupid enough to do this, the momentum is entirely against it, except for that very strange bird Romney, who I think is dealing with some serious psychological issues of his own, issues of this kind of private vendetta that he has against Trump, this peculiar apostle messianic complex he has about himself. He's turned himself into a ridiculous figure. I just hope the Utah Republicans toss him out at the soonest opportunity. But nevertheless, apart from Romney, it's not even clear that a single other Republican is going to vote to convict Trump. And that, to me, is very welcome news for the simple reason that it means that at least at this point, when the Democrats are trying to prevent Trump from running again, and think about it, think about the lack of faith that they have in democracy. Shouldn't the American people decide who their president is going to be in 2024? I don't know if Trump is going to make a comeback. It's not impossible. Hey, Winston Churchill, to give another example, Winston Churchill was tossed out rudely by the British people right after World War II, right after this great victory. And yet, they brought him back. I'm not saying Trump is Churchill, but I'm saying that could be the kind of thing we see in America, a political comeback. It's happened before. I don't know if Trump will do it, but I will say that that should be a verdict left to the American people themselves. The Republican Party can act to prevent the creation of a new party by standing by Trump in his hour of need.